So I'm going to talk to you about how artists are using and thinking about AI in their current practice. So first of all, a little bit about me. I'm known for running this Meetup on Creative AI, which is a monthly event series with presentations from the research side about the latest developments in machine learning and other AI techniques, and then also talks from artists and creative practitioners who are engaging with these tools. I also quite like contemporary art, so going to all these funny exhibitions and Instagramming. Then I've dabbled in trying to be an artist because, like many of the people in the AI community, I quite like the idea of automation and optimization, and I thought it would be kind of cool if I could get the algorithm to do the artwork for me, and then I could just kind of claim the credit. And then I thought that maybe that's not quite for me, so I decided to focus more on curation, and that involved figuring out how to display digital art in a very old Cambridge library. And what I also do is I sometimes work with venture funds to help them understand how startups work in the AI and creative industry space. And so now I'm going to give you an overview of some of the main technical milestones and the creative projects associated with them. So I really feel that the mainstream interest in AI appeared with DeepDream back in summer 2015. So for those of you who haven't come across these wonderful, psychedelic, brightly colored pagodas and animals, then this was a project from Google in the US that found features in an image and increase them, or I always forget the English word. So here's an example. This is an artist friend of mine called Memo, and once you apply the DeepDream algorithm on him, which he did himself, you can see that there are some weird shapes appearing, which is quite fun. And so apart from using this algorithm on his own face, he also applied it to, I think this is the GCHQ building in the US, and yeah, this was one of the artworks that was put on sale at the DeepDream art show in February 2016, and it managed to sell for 8,000, which is good for a newly for a newly emerging field of working with these technologies. Daniel Ambrosi is another artist who's been working with this DeepDream technique, and you can see that the use here is perhaps a bit more subtle, and the background of the original image is perhaps a bit more visible. The next technique is this style transfer, which came from a paper called A Neural Algorithm of Artistic Style by Leon Gattis et al. And you may know this from Prisma. So that was the app that enabled you to turn your holiday snaps into the works of Van Gogh and Munch and other great artists. So artists such as Jean Kogan have worked with these tools to turn the Mona Lisa into a cubist, impressionist and pointillist style, and then also applied other types of style to it. So you can see there's kind of Google Maps in the corner, so you don't necessarily have to link it to an existing artistic movement or technique. So the next type of technique that is quite popular is, I guess, the Char recurrent neural network, which has been used to generate text on a character-based level. And this has been used in Beyond the Fence musical, which premiered at the West End in early 2016. And in that musical, machine learning techniques were used at a variety of stages. So one was to determine the plot. And for that, the directors and the producers of the musical worked with goldsmiths to analyze 1,600 musicals and figure out what they're normally about, what kind of plot points they must have to be successful. And what they realized was this, is that the musical had to be set in the 1980s. It had to have a love story. And therefore, what they decided to do was to focus the musical on Greenham Common, which is, I think it was a feminist anti-nuclear colony in the 1980s, and then there was some sort of love story between one of the colony members and an army soldier. And then apart from the plot line, machine learning was used to generate the text and the lyrics. In terms of the public response, well, not the public, the critical response, you can see that, yeah, it's kind of mediocre. Yeah, it was exciting because it was computer created, but otherwise it still had the traditional problems that every musical has. Well, partly because maybe it was trained on 1,600 musicals from the past. And yeah, so that was kind of that musical. And then another project working with text generation is Sunspring. I don't know if you've seen this short film. It's about 5 minutes long, and it's quite fun because you get to watch these actors dress up in these beautiful golden futuristic costumes and then try to figure out how to make some nonsensical computer-generated text make as much sense as possible. And yeah, it's quite fun, particularly given that the artists, the stage directions were also generated by this algorithm. So there are some weird scenes of it's a little bit weird and very experimental in nature, and is personally, I think, quite a fun way to see how humans try to interpret some of this computer text. And then, yeah, here I'm also going to tell you about my work and my efforts to outsource all this creative and artistic project. By the way, this is like a flyer from last year, so thankfully no more art by me is happening in November. But last year, what I did was I trained this Char-rnn on some George Bernard Shaw texts to generate me maybe a page and a half of text that you can give to people to act out. And then I found a human, so a Russian friend of mine who liked to dabble in writing. So I thought, perfect, I've got a machine and a human to do all the work for me. And then I found some other humans who became the performers and who acted out the two texts, either according to their interpretation of what a robot is or what a human is. And the audience, they had to guess who was acting as a robot using the computer-generated text, and who was acting as a robot from the human text, and vice versa. So yeah, not many people actually got it, but I think that was a combination of the multiple variables, right? So you had to guess the authorship of the text, whether that was human or non-human. Then you had to figure out what the interpretation of the term robot or human was in the head of the performer or the volunteer. And then finally, it was also partly the acting abilities that determined how well the performance went. So that was kind of my effort. And now I'm going to move onto Terry Broad's work, which is auto-encoding Blade Runner. So what Terry Broad did is he used a variational autoencoder to reconstruct the film Blade Runner frame by frame. So on the left-hand side, you can see the original film, and on the right is the reconstructed version. So I guess it's not too bad, but you probably wouldn't want to watch the right-hand version if you were trying to really understand the film. But hey, still, there was this copyright infringement problem. So after Terry Broad put it up on YouTube, Warner Brothers wrote to him saying, hey, like, you're infringing our copyright, along with all these other people. So to me, it was quite interesting to see that the reconstructed version, which was quite far removed visually from the original, still kind of fell under this copyright infringement problem. And the one thing that I do like seeing is how some of these techniques become incorporated into works by other artists. So there is this artist called Lawrence Leck, who is very much a fan of making computer-generated films. So you can see on the left-hand side, this is a vision of Singapore in the year, I think, 2049. And there is a satellite AI kind of flying just below a board of Go. And this AI dreams about becoming an artist. And on the right-hand side is an image from the film that was done by training a variational autoencoder on the preceding 40 or so minutes of this computer-generated film. So yeah, that was quite cool. And then I think the most popular technique of 2017 is some of this work with GANs and pix-to-pix. So you might have seen some of this stuff where you start kind of drawing a cat, and you can get a more real-life looking cat after you run through the pix-to-pix thing. And some of the artists that work with it include Mario Klingemann, who has created these somewhat gender and identity fluid portraits of humans with somewhat misplaced eyes and mouths that were made by using some of these techniques on data sets of contemporary female selfies and old male portraits. And there's some more of his work. And apart from that, there are some artists who are starting to think about how you can work to create your own data set. And one of these is Anna Ridler, who watched the film The Fall of the House of Usher. And what she did there is she made 300 drawings from the scenes in the film, and then she trained pix-to-pix on her drawings to generate the film. And here are some of the shots. So you can see that in her style, which is nice. And apart from machine learning, some of the artists are experimenting with other techniques, such as genetic algorithms. And one of these is Harm van den Dorpel. And what he did is he was thinking about the idea of how do you create the supreme artwork. And what he did was he had two artwork parents who generate various possibilities of artwork children. And then, based on user feedback and his artistic thinking, he figures which artworks to keep and save and print to become a physical artwork. And here are some generated works of his. And then I just wanted to give you some examples that look at the theme of AI, but actually don't use any machine learning techniques. But they are very cool, so they're worth your time. So one of these is this work called The Signs of Our Time by Scott Kelly and Ben Polkinghorne. So you can see when you go hiking in these beautiful mountain surroundings, you can get a sign that says, people who like this also liked, and a couple of examples of other mountains. So that kind of makes you think about how these recommender systems influence our way of thinking and figuring how to allocate our time and attention. Another work I really like is this predictive art bot by Nicolas Maigret and Maria Rostkowska. And this artwork is about using a Twitter bot that generates concepts for contemporary artworks, such as a narrative self-driving car protesting against artificial intelligence, or a post-internet malware to materialize the bias of whistleblowers. And if you're a fan of contemporary art, you might realize that some of these could very well be realistic art pieces. And then what these artists did is they tried to find real artists who would then make these artworks that have been generated by the Twitter bot. So it kind of subverts the human and machine relationship, where it's the machine giving the human instructions on what to do. And then there's this great work by Julien de Suef and Matthew Plummer Fernandez. And this is called Shiv Integer. There's this website on the internet called Thingiverse, and I think it's a website where you can get 3D designs of various objects. And what these guys did is they started remixing the designs. So you got this plastic action car, which is a combination of, I guess, a car and some other elements. And these objects look a bit bizarre and not something you might want to print. But yeah, they did that, and some of them were printed. And it was quite interesting to see what the reaction was from the community, because some people thought that, hey, this could be a real person that is maybe creating work in this type of style that not everybody can understand. But then there were others who sent the artists hate mail because they thought this this bot was polluting the platform. And then they had a real exhibition in Amsterdam where visitors could work, whether it was art or spam. And then I will finish, I think almost finish, with this image of a cat by the artist Pinar Yoldas. And this is a short video piece about this future governor of our planet Earth, who is an AI, but also a cat, and she talks to her subjects about the problems and that there is kind of no opportunity to avoid the mistakes we make. But to me, this is interesting because we have a cat that depicts an AI rather than the Terminator. And if you do want to, if you don't know much about machine learning and you want to get started, then Gene Kogan has a great resource on machine learning for artists. And if you want to generate some text, then Andrei Karpathy has this Char-rnn that works well. And Rebecca Febrink has a Wikinator system that allows you to build new interactive systems by demonstrating human actions and computer responses instead of writing code. And if you're a bit more proficient or interested in the societal and other implications of machine learning in the field of creativity and design, then I'm co-organizing a NIPS workshop on this topic on the 8th of December in LA, and you can submit papers or artworks until 3rd of November. So thanks for listening. That's That's it from me.